if you get what I'm going to give you today, there's nothing that can stop you from being as successful as you want. That's my little tip for what I'm going to share today. So what I want to take you through today, and this is, to me, this is the most important message you could get at any point. It is really how to become as successful as you want in the simplest way possible, and in its stories. You know, if you think about all causes, all great companies, all great organizations, all great movements, what is at the root of all of them? Somebody telling a story. That's all it is. The biggest, most successful things in the world are from stories. They're not from details. They are not from features. They are not from information. They are from stories. When I first started in Lifeplus, the first day I signed up, I didn't know anything, nothing. I signed up 3 people that day by phone. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about the company. I had one little piece of paper that said, you know, like the things that are on my almost perfect business document that you have access to. I knew there was no sign-up fee. I didn't know anything else. I mean, that's it. It didn't matter because I told the story I had at that moment. I told the story about I was struggling. I was looking for something, and then I saw what happened to my friend, so I did this, and I had to tell you about it. The same front side of the story I tell right now is what I told on the phone with no training, no help, and I signed up 3 people that day. In that month, I told my story 700 times. That story. I didn't have any success before that. I didn't have the story I have now. I was just a struggling guy who found something cool, and I told the story of how I found it. That was all I did. And from that, I signed up 100 people in 1 month, not knowing anything, right? So I'm telling you this because I didn't tell a success story. I didn't have one. When I was telling people that first day, I hadn't even gotten the product yet. I hadn't even swallowed it yet. I was just telling them that I ordered it, that this is what I found, because it was a story. And so I want to talk to you. I want to try to impart to you how simple it is for you to go as far as you want. You know, I have an index card that's part of my index cards I read every day. And I've shared some of those in the past. And this one started from something I heard from Tony Robbins years ago. And that was, your life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you, right? And so my index card simply says, my life happens for me. That's why I said, but see, I don't think it stops there because I don't believe in things being about me. I don't think we're here to be about ourselves. I think we're here for others. That's what I think we're here for. You can disagree. It's okay. I can tell you that my way of thinking is working out pretty well. And so I think it goes like this. My life happens for me, for others. And then I go further, for God and for the greater good. That's how I look at it. It's not my place to tell you how you should look at it. If you just stopped at my life happens for me, for others, that'd be good enough. That would be enough. You don't have to have massive aspiration. You can grow into that. But if I look back on my life, I've had so many things happen to me that at the time were so hard or so upsetting and so difficult. And I can look back on every one of them and go, thank God that happened. If that hadn't happened, then this thing wouldn't have happened. Or then this thing would have happened and that would have been a disaster at the time of who I was. I mean, I have a story right now, but I don't have enough time to tell it to you, but it's a good one. And so the easiest thing that you can do is to tell your story because it's true. You don't need training to tell your story. And your story is what people care about anyway. The more you tell your story, the more you will succeed. It's that simple. And I'm not talking about telling your story perfect. There is no perfect. It's your story, right? Nobody will ever be able to tell your story as good as you, except a little bit more evolved, experienced version of you. That's the only person who will ever be able to tell a better version of the story you can tell right now. But here, just give you some practical stuff. People love stories. It's how we learn as little kids. We're wired for stories, right? We're raised on them. They're interesting. When you tell your story, people lean into your story. They don't back off. When you say, let me tell you about my company, then they're like, well, and you say, let me tell you my story. They're like, hey, okay, right? That's what happens. That is how we are wired. It's so easy. Right? Stories give hope. Stories inspire. Stories are undeniable. Nobody can deny your story. They're unassailable. It's your truth. If someone doesn't believe you, that is a big reflection on that person, not on you. You're just telling your story, especially in our work, because we're like, go check it out. Look as much as you want. I don't want you to do anything until you believe what I believe. I don't care if you don't do it. This is my story. You can't take that from me. That is, but most people love it. That's why it's so much. That's why I find the work so much fun. I mean, in the front end, it's the story part. It's the engagement with others, telling the story. And then, I love the part of developing and serving. That's just how I'm wired. But it's also authentic, right? It's passion, it's enthusiasm, it's vulnerability, it's real life. It elicits feelings, it attracts people. It's not judgeable. You can't be judged on a story. You can be judged on trying to deliver information, but you can't be judged on a story, right? That's the beauty of it. And it builds trust. It's the most powerful, most duplicatable, most multipliable thing that anything could do. There's no video, there's no training, there's no nothing that could do more for you in your future than you telling your story as much as you possibly can. It is a massive asset. It's the greatest asset from an actual working perspective besides time, energy, and love. It's the greatest asset you have is your story. That is your asset. That is your strength. And most of us don't realize it. We don't realize it. We don't realize that within us is something so powerful that can help so many people. But we're too busy judging ourselves instead of just telling it. Instead of telling it over and over and over and over, everywhere to everyone. If you think about it, everywhere around you are people who are in serious struggles with their health in some way, in serious struggles with relationships, in serious struggles financially. They need to hear a story. They need it. What they do about it is not on you. They just need to hear the story. You can change so many lives just by telling your story. I once heard it said, your story can inspire a nation. That's true. I know you don't believe that. You think I'm just me. I'm just little me. I think that way too, right? Look, I'm an introvert. I'd rather be fishing by myself even right now. I do what I do because I'm called to do it, right? I know I'm supposed to do it, so I do it. I'm not trying to make more money. I don't need anything else. I'm here to deliver stuff to help you help change the freaking world because we can. That's just the truth. But we can't change the world if we won't tell our story. Right? We think we got to know how to present. No, you don't. I'm on Zooms every day, all day. I'm not presenting anything. I'm just telling a story, telling a story, telling a story, telling a story everywhere. I've had people say, can you explain to me what you do? I say, if you want to hear a story. Why? Because if you don't hear a story, who cares about the information? It's totally irrelevant. So you don't have to display any knowledge. None. You only need your personal experience. All the knowledge is available. All the information is available. And nobody cares about the information unless they want it. And you know what makes someone want it? Your story. That's what makes someone want it, right? That's it. All you got to do is share your experience and then the reason why you're doing it. I'll walk you through the little formula in a moment, but I mean, you don't even need a formula. Just be yourself and tell your story. I mean, how did you get here? You got here from a story. You didn't get here from a fancy presentation. You didn't get here because someone else made a lot of money, or you didn't get here for any other reason except you heard a story and it resonated with you. And then you're like, okay, I need to check that out because maybe it could help me. It didn't matter who told it, right? The guy who introduced me, the guy who told him the original story, neither him or I liked that guy. We didn't even like him, but the story was so good. We're like, we don't like that guy. We got to check it out. So you got to recognize it within you is an incredible gift, and you have to give it to people. And you don't have to be fancy. I tell my story in bare feet, in t-shirts, in sweatpants, with my hair sticking all over the place. I just tell it. And if you don't like it, I don't care. I mean, I don't care. If you do like it, I'll help you. And if you don't, have a nice day. I mean, there's nothing hard about that. There's no rejection in a story, right? There's nothing. It's just a story. You know, if you're not growing in your work, it's just simple. If you're not growing, you're not telling your story. Doesn't matter. It's not, well, I don't know what to say. I don't know. You're just not telling your story. That's all. Because your story, that isn't about anything else. It's not about your skill, your title, your history, nothing. It's just your story. It's just your truth. It's just what's on your heart. It's just what's happening. It's just what's inspiring you. It is so connective. Your story's so powerful and you just don't realize it. But man, if you start telling it, you sure will. It's all I have ever done. It's all I've ever done is just tell stories. I tell stories, and then I tell stories of other people. I tell my story. I tell other people's stories, right? Some of you, I've told your story. You don't even know it, right? If I hear a story, I go tell it to somebody. Why? Because I know what stories do. You can say something as simple of, yeah, so I tell my story, and then I teach and develop. That's my pathway. But the story is how I get to teach and develop. I have a story to tell you. I found something. I got to tell you. I got to tell you this story. I got to tell you what happened to me. I mean, let me tell you how this happened. I don't care how you say it. I mean, be yourself. That's just normal stuff. The beauty of it is you tell your story and go wherever it leads. If it doesn't lead anywhere, so what? It's going to lead somewhere with somebody, and it's going to lead somewhere with most people, because most people you tell your story to, they're like, I'd like to learn more about that. That's pretty... Then you've done it. You've done all you need to do, except support them in learning, period. You know, the beautiful thing about it is it works from day one. It's, you know, I almost feel like it'd be better if I yanked down all the training stuff, just pulled, not the personal development stuff, but all the training stuff. Just took it all down and say, don't worry about any of that. Just go tell your story. Because if you did, you'd be like, well, I can't do it until I know how the my compensation plan works. Well, I can't do it until I know exactly how to talk to someone about this. I need to know how those proanthanols really work in the bloodstream. Right? Nobody cares about any of that stuff. Right? They just want to hear your story. Your story is magic. Right? It's magic. You got magic in your hands, and you can go around and sprinkle it anywhere that you want, as much as you want. And the more you do, the more you'll grow. So the more you tell your story, you don't need features, you don't need details, you don't need expertise, you don't need any blah, blah, blah. All that is available. All that can be ascertained by someone who wants it, right? That's what an email is for. That's what a website is for. That's what the tools we've created are for. So you can share those. Let them do that part. You do the most important part. Tell your story. The more you tell your story, and it doesn't matter who you are or what your circumstances are, the more you tell your story, the more people will get involved. And then the more people you have involved, guess what? 4 stories you are now creating, which is adding to your story. It's making your story better. That's the beauty of it. It's adding on. It might not even make it better. It just makes it more. It just gives you more of the story to tell. You know, I didn't, as I already shared, I didn't start with the story I have now. I have a story now. I can't even tell my whole story now because nobody could ever envision that they're going to have the life that I have. They just couldn't. I mean, it's just the truth. That's why you never hear me talk about money. I never talk about it. Why? Because no one's going to relate to that. I'm not a guy who's going to stand in a hotel room and say, I went from nothing to blah, blah, blah. And now look what I have. I don't care. Nobody cares. Right? I might talk a little bit about my life, the fact that I have total freedom to do the things that I love to do. And I invest myself in the things that matter to me. And I'm doing this because it's a cause and I love to help people. Yeah, I talk about that stuff. But your story right now is just as good as it may ever be. But I didn't start with this story, right? I didn't start with the story I tell now. I started with the story back then when I didn't have anything, like zero. Like I didn't know I was going to feed my children that month. That was where I was when I started. I hadn't even tried a product yet. That's where I was when I started. I didn't have any success track record. I didn't have any credibility. I just told the story over and over because I wanted a better life. That's what I wanted. And I wasn't willing to stop and give in and settle for a life that someone else would have me have. So I told the story over and over. And you know what? I didn't have me. No, great. I'm just a guy. But I have a really good story now, right? I represent what's entirely possible through being a part of this community. I didn't have that to point to. You do. Your story's better than mine when I started because you have your story and you have my story if you want. You don't have to use it. That's totally up to you. I'm not trying to be famous. I'd rather be infamous. I'd rather at some point just be like somebody's name that someone mentions and somebody says, who is that guy? I've never seen him. That's who I'm trying to be. But right now it calls for me to be here. So here I am. So think about this in a very simple way. When you sit with someone to talk, now you can tell your story in a flyby in any situation. When someone says, hey, what are you up to? You go, I got a story to tell you. I mean, how normal is that? Then you can tell a 10-minute version of it and they'll be like, wow, can I learn about that? Right? But when you're telling it on purpose, and you've set up a Zoom with someone by saying, hey, I got a story to tell you, or I'm working on a project, I want to talk to you about it. So easy. I mean, it's ridiculously easy to set up a conversation. This goes very simply. Their story, how you doing? Tell me about your life. And then your story. End of meeting. All right, that's it. No, let me get into the details. Let me explain the product. Let me explain to you how the marketing plan works. Yeah, you can have access to that. And if they want to go through it and you want to, go ahead. But as long as it's their story, your story, you've done most of what you need. Right? Their story, your story, my story if you need it. You don't have to. I'm not telling you got to. It's not my goal. But it's to let you know it's there and it will be useful for you. If you do an open house, first of all, open houses are most effective when you've been talking to people. Especially in the United States, you try to invite people cold to an open house, you're going to be sitting by yourself. That's what's going to happen. That's the way it works. But when people are already engaged in the products or already engaged in the learning, then people will come. And when you have a team and you can tell, what do you do at an open house? You tell stories. Let's not confuse it. You don't pitch and try to sign them up. I am never trying to sign somebody up, ever. I'm telling a story. And if they say, hey, I want to know more, then I'm following up on the information and they're going to come to it. And when they come to it, then I help them get started. I don't close. I've never closed. I'm not a closer. If I had to be a closer to do this, I'd do something else because it's not me. Nothing I've ever done have I been a closer, right? I'm an opener. I tell stories and support people. That's all you got to do. And so structure the story, keep this simple, how you found out about it and why you were interested. right? I mean, that could include the story of how you learned about it. The second thing is what you found. Well, a program or a way to do this, a way to earn some income without risk. I couldn't believe it when I saw that, right? What you discovered. And then what happened? What happened then? Right? I mean, this is how a story goes, right? A story's a journey, right? And so what happened then? Well, I started the program, and the first few days I was wonky, and then by day 5, I started to feel really great, and I lost 7 pounds, and oh my gosh, I cannot believe my energy, and my skin looks better, and my hands work better, whatever, right? It's your story, whatever happened to you, and that's transferable, that is contagious. And then why are you sharing it with them? Because I want to accomplish this and this and this, and this is so awesome. I had to tell you about it. I mean, come on. That's pretty easy. I mean, it's really, really easy. Anybody can do it. And so I would think about it this way. How many times a day can you tell it? I mean, really, it's not should you tell it, it's how many times a day can you tell it? Surely you can tell it once or twice a day, right? I mean, everywhere you look, there's people. How many people are in your phone? How many in your Facebook group? How many are on your email? How many are, you don't have enough time to tell all the people your story that you need to. You tell your story once or twice a day, you'll enroll 3 to 5 people a month. That's going to happen. So if you're not enrolling 3 to 5 people a month, you're not telling your story. It's that simple because that's how it works. That's how the world works. That's how everything around you happened. That's right. The couch you're sitting on, somebody told a story at some point. The house you're in, somebody told a story at some point. The clothes you're wearing, somebody told a story at some point. Somehow, somewhere. That's how it happened. Everything happens that way. So if you invite to the open houses, you invite to Wednesday, I would say you got to hear this guy's story. That's all. You got to hear this story, right? And so it doesn't matter where your Lifeplus story starts. It just doesn't. It could start with the MR program. It could start with learning about the opportunity. It could start with you laying in a ditch somewhere. It could start with meeting a cool person. It doesn't matter. It's your story. Tell it from where it starts. Tell it fully. Tell it what it means, right? When I tell people about when I first learned about it, man, I didn't know if I was going to be successful. I mean, nothing in my history would have said I would be successful. I was broke. I was like as low as you can get. That's not a like, oh, anybody, I can do this, right? I'm not afraid to say that. I don't hide anything from people. I tell people I messed up my life on drugs and alcohol for years. I tell people about quitting stuff. I tell people about all the mistakes I made. I got no ego in the way I operate. I'm going to be real. And the more real you are, the more people will be magnetized to you. So tell your story fully, and your community will grow. And the community overall, I'm telling you, we could change the world. I'm telling you, we can, right? You tell your story enough, you'll start seeing what I see. You will. So I would encourage you, don't let today go by without telling someone your story. When you wake up in the morning, write a little note to yourself. Who am I telling my story to today? Who am I telling my story to today? Okay. I think that's all for today. I think that's enough. I hope that this was enlightening in some way, but it's just the truth. I love y'all. I appreciate you all. It's a joy for me to support you, and I want the best for you. I want to see you actualize. I want to see you have the life you truly want, not a life you settle for. Life is too short to settle. Do not settle. Okay, that's all for today. I'll send out the recordings on the week. I probably won't get. I'm not going to get to it today. I got a Zoom call. Michael, if you're on, I can't see who's on. Tune back in here in a few minutes, and we'll do our time today, and then I will get an email out for Monday on what's happening, and we'll just keep rolling. But I encourage you, tell your story boldly with heart. All right. Love you all. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.